Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, the show that offers you tips and strategies to help speakers build the business of their dreams. Now here's your host, 30-year industry veteran and business coach, Jane Atkinson.
Hey, so welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. This is going to be one of our podcast quickies. We like to give you some little bite-sized pieces, especially in and around the holiday season, because we know you're busy and we want to make sure that everything we do for you has value. Now, one of the things that has been going on at our end is a review of whether or not our central theme for the year in 2024 came true. And let me share with you, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me hold this up to the screen. I have an index card and it says business and life, profitable and easy on my terms. If you're a podcast listener, you may have heard me share that with other people before. And that was the intention for this past year. So part one of this is I want to just share quickly the review of my own business, but then I want you to be thinking about how you're reviewing your business as well. So when I look back on business and life, profitable and easy on my terms, did it happen? Was it an effective intention? And I have to say, this has been one of my favorite years. It started out a year ago. My mom broke her hip and then she broke her leg. And my mom is 90, going to be 95 next month with Alzheimer's. And so I was really thinking, you know what? You might be a little distracted this year. You're going to need to think about what kind of time and energy you can put into your business versus what kind of output that you want financially. And having had Stephanie Staples on the podcast last year, who introduced me to a word called lagom. And I think it's Swedish, but don't quote me on that part. It's from somewhere across the pond. And lagom means enough. And so at the beginning of last year, or at some point last year, I started thinking about, okay, well, what is enough? How much revenue do I really need? And I had been going after these massive, massive financial goals for many, many years. And I realized that I already had all the things that I needed. And why was I pushing so hard? It felt like I was trying to push this giant boulder up a hill. And now listen, if you're in the beginning of your business or somewhere in the first 10 years, I mean, this is year 30 something for me, really recognize that where I am and where you are probably going to be two different places, okay? But I had felt like I was pushing this giant boulder, and the giant boulder that I had been pushing up the hill for so long was having these really big audacious goals. And I like audacious, but what I realized was, so let's say I wanted to earn $1 million. I've said this on the podcast before. My goal was to earn $1 million a year. And then I started to break it down and think about, well, what does it take to have a business that brings in seven figures? What's that look like? And am I A, interested, or B, willing to do the work required? And the answer came back a resounding hell no. I didn't want to employ the people required. I didn't want to, in order to make money, you need to spend money. I wasn't really thinking about that. If anything, I backed off. I probably backed off on my expenses this year by 30%. And that felt great. I also backed up on how much I was working. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday has kind of been my ideal work week. Sometimes I do podcasts on Mondays, but I don't work Fridays for sure. And especially in the summertime, that felt amazing. And as you may have heard me talk about, we have a cottage up north, 3 hours north of here, and which we have now renovated into being a year-round operation. So we're able to go up at Christmas time, and I am so excited about that and so looking forward to it. But in the summertime, part of what made life as spectacular this past year was going out into the middle of the lake on our pontoon and jumping off and floating in the water for a couple of hours. Like that to me, it was the simplest things. And that comes right back to Stephanie Staples' Lagome. What is enough for you? I really, really examined it. And so I think sometimes we get maybe lured in through magnetism to big, rich goals. I was lured in by Brooke Castillo. I watched Brooke Castillo go from $1 million company to like a $50 million company. And I watched all the headaches that she had, all the employees that she had, and I thought, I want no part of anything remotely like that. I think it was cool to watch her and to see the trials and the tribulations that she went through on her way up the mountain. And the fact that you can set a goal to to have your company earn $50 million and achieve it, to me is just mind-blowing. But what she preaches is that it all comes back to your thoughts equaling your results. And she believed she could do it. And then she took consistent action in order to make it happen. And good for you, Brooke Castillo. I thought it was just magnificent to watch. And I loved watching on. But I got kind of lured in to the idea of having these big gargantuan goals without really considering how much at this stage, I turned 60 this past year, by the way, and I feel pretty good about that too. And the fact of the matter is, my husband's starting to wind his business down. I want to spend time with him. Do I want to travel much anymore? No. So I took all kinds of things off of my list very, very, very intentionally this year. Now, is that what's the right thing for you? Perhaps not. Perhaps you're ramping up. Perhaps you do want to hustle. But if you're anywhere near the stage of your career like me, and you are setting some really lofty goals for yourself, I just want you to examine whether or not you want to work hard enough to achieve that. Okay. There's also the idea around the thought process, your thoughts equaling your results, that allows you to review whether or not you are the one getting in the way of whatever financial goals you have. So when you're doing your year-end review, I want you to recognize what thought have you had about your business this entire year, and did that get you the results that you wanted? If your thought all year was something like, I'm behind, ask yourself, what does I'm behind? I'm not achieving my potential. What does that thought result in terms of a feeling? And if the feeling is anything of like less than, okay, ashamed, whatever, then just recognize that you're taking all your actions from a negative feeling and you're not going to get the results necessarily, okay? If you do, it's a miracle. So really be aware of moving into 2025, what feeling is going to have you feeling any sense of calm confidence. Calm confidence is going to allow you to reach your financial goals if they are kind of like mine, where they're like, okay, that's totally reasonable goal. I'm not going to have to hustle and push and push and push and push to get that goal. If you have a lofty goal for 2025, then you're going to need to lock down a thought that is going to result in a feeling of some sort of massive enthusiasm. It's going to be a confident, it's a confident thought. It's going to be a thought that garners up some sort of grit in you, because that's what's going to be required in order to reach a lofty goal. So if your foot is on the gas pedal and you are pressing down, then really lock down a thought that makes you feel powerful. Okay, be aware of that. If it's if you're at the beginning of your career, you might need to lock in a thought that allows you to be kind of like patiently confident. It might be, I'm following my strategy, it's just a matter of time. And if that allows you to feel like calm and confident, then that's a great thought to move forward with if you're just starting out. The feeling that we probably see the most in the school and with my private coaching clients is a lack of patience. And a lack of patience, if it's putting you in a place where this isn't working, is the thought, which leads to then a feeling of despair or something negative, you are not going to get the results. Okay. I want to also recommend, if your Christmas reading, holiday reading, post-holiday reading isn't the Wealthy Speaker 3.0, which it maybe should be. I also want to recommend The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, because The Gap and the Gain really puts you into a place where you're recognizing all of your wins. So your goal for the year in review is to make a list of all the wins, no matter how big, no matter how small, and make sure that you're really recognizing all of the things that went right this past year. And I think if you do that, it's going to lead you to a place, and definitely moving into 2025 with a thought that will result in some sort of feeling of confidence. The bottom line, what I've been kind of talking you through, is our thought model, and we'll put a copy of the form for the thought model in the show notes for this podcast, because I want you to be able to see it laid out on the page. When I often say our thoughts equal our results, but really what's driving all of your actions, which is kind of what comes in between those two things, is a feeling either of positive or negative. And if you're taking all of your actions from a negative space, from a space that is, this isn't working, I'm not getting enough bookings, I'm not making enough money, I'm not living up to my potential. If any of those thoughts lead you to a feeling of less than, then you're coming at all your actions from less than. And chances are very good that you're going to continue the cycle into 2025. And that's what we are here to break today. Okay, so take a look at that thought model. Maybe you print a few copies of it. And if you find yourself going into any kind of negative thought spiral, make sure that you lock down a new thought that is going to get you there. I remember locking down the thought, people need me now more than ever. And that would actually came from my friend Chris West, who enlisted me at the beginning of COVID. Jane, people need us now more than ever. We've got to go and do something. Do you want to do something together? And I said, sure. And we decided to do a 4-week brand camp, which is, by the way, out on my YouTube channel. If you search Jane Atkinson brand camp, Jane Atkinson, Chris West on YouTube, you'll find our 4-week brand camp that we did at the beginning of COVID. The content still holds up. It was still one of the best things, the best pieces of content we've ever put out from this company. And you'll notice in week 1, I wasn't really present because I was still reeling from my earlier thought at the beginning of COVID, which was, my industry's been wiped out. I was freaking out. And when Chris came to me and said, people need us now more than ever, I thought, yes, you're right. But it took me just a little while to kind of embody that. And so you'll see, I kind of showed up in week 2 of brand camp. And then it was off to the races from there. And we put together some really amazing content. So definitely check that out. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Anyway, my thought, people need me now more than ever, has kind of remained in place. And it's something that allows me to feel confident and excited to share what I know with our school, with my private coaching clients. And when somebody who's kind of the perfect fit for me lands on my doorstep, I can kind of tell when they're a perfect fit when they're eating it up, when they're really excited about talking to me and saying, yeah, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. And that helps drive the confidence even more. And, the more confident your clients are in you, the greater work you do. You're kind of the barriers have been unleashed, and it gives you a little bit more latitude to be your most creative self and your best self. So when it comes to reviewing your year 2024, moving into 2025, really be aware of where your thoughts have been and where you want them to be, and be incredibly intentional about reviewing your wins and taking that confidence into 2025. I hope you've loved this quickie podcast. And with that, we're going to say, see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help building the speaking business of your dreams, head over to wealthyspeakerschool.com and take advantage of our 20-minute next step call. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast.